you need to have, a good 3, 4, 5 coping skills that you can pull from and be like, okay, this is the one I'm doing today. And if that one doesn't work, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes I go for a
Yeah.
walk and I'm like, fuck, I'm still not feeling good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I can go home and do something else and try
Something
something
else.
else.
Yeah. Hey, friend. Welcome to the Ready to Rise podcast with your host, me, Audrey Rose. This is the podcast all about taking your life to the next level. Join me on my journey as I create a life that I'm obsessed to wake up for every day. I hope that you are ready to create a life that you really, really love. Are you ready to rise? Okay, you guys, before we dive into today's episode, I just want to mention if you haven't got your ticket to Empower Her Live 2023, you freaking better, because apparently it's the last one for a little while. If you use the code Audrey at checkout, it will save you quite a bit of cash. And yeah, if you are not sold on going yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. Check out my Instagram for more inspiration on why that was one of the best events that I've ever been to that changed my life. Okay, so here is our episode with Lindsey. I cannot wait to start. There is a suicide warning, trigger warning for suicide, okay? But this conversation is amazing and very much needed. I would love if you just want to introduce yourself a little bit. I actually officially met you at Keisha's event in 2022, and then like getting to know you more. I had actually seen your book prior to that on like Instagram, but I don't think we had actually like connected on it. And so yeah, if you could just give us a little introduction about you, what you do, and then we'll get into your book a little bit and your blog, all the things.
All the fun things. Yes, I am Lindsey Konchar. I am a licensed social worker, and so
Awesome.
I did like clinical work. So you and I can
Yes.
definitely
You
chat
get
about
it.
the
You
the
get
health
it.
field. Yes, I think I did more therapy with like the nurses
Oh my
and the
gosh.
other team members that I was working with than I actually, my
Yeah,
patients.
I bet.
It was a healthy mix of that, which was great, and I loved it. But then pandemic happened, and I was
Yeah.
I was already pregnant when the pandemic happened, but I was furloughed. And then when they started bringing people back because it was a health clinic, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm pregnant. We don't know what this crazy virus is doing to people. And
Yeah.
so I just stayed home. So I was a stay-at-home mom before I actually had given
Wow.
birth. So
Oh,
really interesting story. But yeah, and then um, I ended up having really, really, really horrible postpartum depression and postpartum
okay.
anxiety. And so,
So
and being a
much.
clinical social worker, which I have
Mm-hmm.
coached other people on, like
Yes.
through, I was like,
Yeah.
that's no way it's going to happen to me. And then
Yeah.
it did. Yeah. So that was a lot. And then I was like, how the heck do I not feel like shit anymore?
Right.
And I just really self-reflected a lot and kind of took some time to like figure out, okay, what's next for me, because it's not going back to work. I know I want to be home with my baby. At the time, baby is now. um, but I had had this book on my heart for a long time, and so I ended up like just
Doing
using
it.
my nap times and bedtimes and
Wow.
writing this book, and then I published it, gosh, almost a year ago now. So
Wow.
yeah.
Congrats, first of all, because that's a
Thank
lot
you.
of work.
Thank you. It was, yes, but
Uh,
I loved it. I actually loved it. So
really.
yes,
And now you're blogging.
I'm now blogging. Yes, so
And
I
is
am
this
doing
like
that.
about, mom life or still kind of talking a little bit about the postpartum depression and those kinds of things as well?
Yes, so kind of all of the above. So I blog about motherhood, mental health, and then now actually, they say every time you have a baby, you kind of like rediscover something about yourself. So I'm
Wow.
currently 5 months postpartum, and just learned that there is a thing called financial therapy, and I am obsessed with like
What?
numbers and just running. I just like love money. Like I just like love learning about it and learning how to like create financial freedom
Wow.
for me, my family, generational wealth for my kids, like all the things.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
I will be certified in that by, in a couple of weeks. And
Ah.
then, yeah, doing financial therapy. And so I will be blogging motherhood, mental health, and money
Oh, I love
is the
that.
coping with Lindsey blog.
Oh
So
my gosh, this is so good. And
yeah.
is that literally what it's called? Like we can just Google coping with Lindsey?
Yep, copingwithlindsey.com. That's my website. And then it's just like literally top tab coping with, and there's like a drop down of like all these
Which
different things that
one?
we're coping with. Yeah, what
That's
what do
so
you need to cope with
cool.
today?
Girl,
So
yeah, life is that way.
Yeah. Yep.
Tell me about your book. Like, what is kind of like, what's it about? Is that, I'm assuming it's a little bit more like postpartum centered or?
It's not actually. So
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
So it's called I Got 99 Coping Skills and Being a Bitch Ain't One,
So true.
obviously.
So good.
Um, and so for me, the concept came from I was working at an inpatient psychiatric hospital. And so I was floor staff, so similar
Okay.
to your 9 to 5,
Yeah.
which is not a
Yeah.
9 to 5, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. The day job,
The
the
day
real
job.
thing. Oh
That's the
gosh.
word, the day job.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was basically I tell people I was a nurse without passing meds. So I was a
Basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just put that picture in because I'm like, I wasn't a doctor that just like
Yeah.
came in and chatted for 2 minutes with a patient and left and never
Yeah.
saw them again.
Yeah. You're in there.
I
Yeah.
was in
It's a
it.
lot.
And so I was working primarily with patients who had suicidal ideation.
Wow.
Most of them had attempted suicide. But yeah, so really, really hard, deep, tough stuff that a lot of my patients were going through. Many of them had like active panic attacks
Okay.
on the floor with me. So I worked, a lot on all things coping skills, getting them through that panic, through those
Yeah.
feelings, through those all the things. So
Yeah, because they're like actively in it. They're actively having all of this going
yes,
on.
yeah, lots
It's a
of really
lot.
symptomatic and yeah, and so it was heavy. It was really heavy work. And so one of the things that we did is the patients would come off the elevator and we would hand them a welcome folder
Okay.
and it would have like, the hospital map and like their lunch schedule and or meal schedule and all those things. And I was like looking through it one day and I would do the welcome stuff. So I'd sit with them for hours and
Yeah.
go through kind of like what to expect, blah, blah, blah. And we had nothing in there about like what you can do right now to get yourself out of this
Ooh.
shit. And so I
Yes.
brought it to my manager and I was like, we need to do like a coping skill list for them.
Yeah.
And so I made up a list of 99 coping skills for my patients. And
So good.
we had put that, in the welcome folder since. And then I just started thinking, as I like moved through working with these patients more and more, they did so many of them did
Yeah.
not need to get to that level of care. Inpatient psychiatric
Wow.
hospitalization is
Yeah.
really, really intensive.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
had they just had some coping skills,
So
they could have just, I mean, they would have still needed help and care, of course, but not, I just feel like we're not prevented. We are so reactive as a general society. And if we had more resources available to us that could take some preventative measures,
yeah.
I just think it would be so helpful. And so I started thinking, like, what if this turned into a book? Like,
Hmm.
what if I gave people
Yes.
the clinical skills that we're using in the hospital and translated them to be like, hey,
Hmm.
you're struggling
Yeah.
here. And so one thing led to another. The list had like, totally changed from what it once was. And now, so it is quite literally a list of 99 coping skills, but it's all evidence based. And it's
Okay. Oh,
like
I love that.
super fun. It's not
Yeah.
boring. There's like a lot of, I'm funny, obviously.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no, but yeah, so and there's some personal stories of how I've used, some of the skills with either in my personal life with
Yeah.
patients that I've worked with, or I actually interviewed 33 of the coping skills are people that I interviewed who are more, commonly known in that niche per se.
Wow.
So,
Okay. Okay.
like, do you know who Lindsey Sterling is, the violinist?
I've
Oh my
heard the
God,
name. I
she's
just,
so cool. But I interviewed her for it, and
wow.
I love her. She's very open about, her mental health stuff, and so she
So
was,
good.
yeah. So it's just like really cool people I got to chat with and tell their stories. And I don't know, it was just, I loved every second of it. And I just like light up when I talk about it. I
Yeah,
love
I
talking
can
about my
see you.
book.
I know you have the biggest smile.
It
Freaking
was
light
so
bulb
fun
over there.
to, I just think, I just think it is like seriously such a helpful tool for anybody,
Yeah.
And I just
Yeah.
love it. So yeah, that's
Having
so
that much passion about something and then creating a tool that's like, well, obviously like 99 tools in one is like seriously super, super cool. And like the fact that you're so passionate about it though is what's going to make it help people. Like people are actually going to be able to benefit from this because the passion's there. You did your research, all the things. Can you
Totally.
just tell me real fast about like the 33 people? Like, so you interviewed like 33 different people and they each kind of gave a tool for the book? Is that how that
So
worked?
I no, so yeah, no, that's a good question. Actually, no one's ever asked me that. So I had the list because I wanted to
Uh-huh.
first and foremost make sure everything was in fact backed by research. I didn't
Okay,
want
so
to
you
give you
first
some
created. Okay.
like, yes. And so then what actually happened is I knew that so I should back up a little bit. So of the 99 coping skills, there's 11 chapters, and so it's broken down into
Okay.
sections. So if you're like, I'm wanting something more, sedentary but still active, whatever, you can do like a body scan or something.
Okay.
um
Yeah.
but I wanted also like things to do to like keep your hands busy or like
Yeah.
active like things, and not just like things that we all kind of know, but like one of the things I had thought of was, what about skiing and snowboarding? Like
Okay.
that could be a really good coping skill for people,
Yeah.
I don't know, in Minnesota perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and so, but I have no experience. I mean, my experience level is zero with
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
And so I thought about, and I reached out to this Olympian. Her name is Christy Pryor, and
Wow.
she's super cool, a medalist and whatever. And so I was like, hey, would you talk to me about your experience and how this has impacted your mental health,
Yeah.
if it's
Wow.
for the better, whatever. She was like, yeah, I'd love to. So I chatted with her, great interview. And then I was like, weird. I can't just have one random interview in this book.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, well, what else am I not equipped
That is
enough to like
so
talk
cool.
about, and like
Yeah.
let's so Money Honey Rachel, I talk about getting your financial shit together is one of the chapters,
Yeah.
which I think is huge. And
That's
that's
such a
kind of
good
now the
coping skill.
direction I'm going in
Yeah.
with my like
Mm-hmm.
career. But at the time, Money Honey Rachel was awesome. Rachel Richards, she's phenomenal. And so I talked with her a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, just like anybody that I was like, I don't want, I mean, I could probably talk about it, but I want to
Yeah.
have a
Mm-hmm.
better story, somebody that's a little closer connected to it. And
So
so,
cool.
yeah, there's a bunch of
Yeah. So
different
kind of
pieces.
like picking, of course, like based on your career and your education that you've already had in the past, like you know how to find the things that are evidence-based and you know how to research that. And so you're picking 99 things, but then on top of that, you're interviewing people and getting their stories for how this works or what their story is with trying this.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
cool.
So I interviewed one of a researcher at Duke University who,
Wow.
yeah, he's really cool. And I was a little hesitant because I was like, I just don't know if I like am totally into it's like virtual reality. I was like,
Yeah.
that's something because one of the chapters is accessories. Like, what can we
Wow.
use as tools to also
Mhm.
help us accompany us in the coping, whatever. And so virtual reality has come up a lot, and there's really, really good evidence to support it being, a really great option for some people. But I wasn't sold on the concept. And then I interviewed him and I was like, okay, you could sell me on this concept.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow. I
really
haven't even
like,
heard of
yeah.
this. I cannot wait to look that up and read that part as well. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it so much. Yeah, like that's the thing is so many people, get so far down the road before they start implementing their coping skills. And I think
Mhm.
too, that's why like it's important to just have everything as accessible as you can.
Totally.
So with your book, like the virtual reality tools might not be accessible to you right away, but
Right.
like you say, a body scan totally is, and you can do that anywhere, anytime.
Exactly. And I left every single chapter in there. Also, at the very end is like, because I can't deep dive on
Yeah.
all 99 things, it would be bigger
Yeah.
than the Bible at that point. Like, that's insane. But so everyone is just kind of like a 4 page, which also I love about it. It's like a total
Yeah.
vacation book. Like, bring this, read
So
it,
true.
4 pages here, 3 pages there, whatever. It's super easy. It's
Or
not
while
like
you're in the middle of having something go on, you can
totally.
literally grab it off your shelf and just be like, flip to some part and just be like, okay, can I do this right now? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so
Hmm.
okay, yes, because what happens when we're in that heightened state of stress and everything
Yeah.
that's going on, our body literally shuts down. And I use this parallel all the time, and it's kind of bad, but it actually works really well. Is like when you're so freaking hungry and you
Yeah.
can't decide what you want to eat, but you just need something in your body, and you're just
Yeah.
like what is it that's gonna like sustain me at this
Yeah.
point? And like you literally just cannot think of meal options even because you're just so hungry. It's like that. It's like when you're like so
Yeah.
out of your mind and stress and anxiety and whatever it is that you're feeling, overwhelm, all those things, you cannot access the really simple coping skills that you need to get
Yeah.
yourself out of that. And
Yeah.
so having that literally, and then there's, the list is on there. So you could quite literally, yes, flip to a
Oh,
page,
I
flip
love
to the
that.
list,
That's
close your
cool.
eyes, press it, and be like, okay,
Yeah.
done. This is the one I'm trying, I'm
Super
doing.
cool.
And I always tell people too, it's a really great resource to have when you're in it and before, because then you can start
Yeah.
practicing some of these
Yes.
skills when you're not
Such
so
a good point.
stressed. And
Hmm.
then access them in your brain when you need them.
Yeah. I feel like that's such a good point. And I was actually going to ask you about that, like about how we can do something to kind of not, we're not going to be able to prevent stuff from coming up, but how we can make sure we can access quicker our
Mhm.
coping skills.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really great because so many of these are like, I wanted it to be really accessible. I wanted these things to be, the accessories chapter is one of the last chapters because I was like, I know
Okay,
realistically, like
cool.
we don't all have like goggles,
Yeah.
like virtual reality goggles.
Yeah.
But we
I don't
do
want to
have,
know how much that would
you know,
cost.
they're actually not that bad. There's resources available in the book, but a lot of it is like deep breathing techniques to like there is a
Yeah.
proper way to breathe, right? There's progressive
Yes.
muscle relaxation, and I had a really hard time finding a script and a recording that I really wanted to like listen to and that I felt good about, so I just
Yeah.
created my own. And so I actually, that's on my website too, if people, it's totally
Love
free if
that.
people want to use that. There's actually a couple QR codes in my book, so you can just literally scan it, it'll take
So
page
smart.
stuff with your vagus nerve that like calm, that's like, I mean, the
Yeah.
whole center for your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And so
Yeah.
yeah, all these things are just there, and I just want people to really have quick access to them. And like for me, my biggest thing that's like so helpful to me, and I know it, is going out for a walk. It
Mm.
always makes me feel good. However, now I have two children, one of which naps 2, 3 times a day. I can't just like leave the house when
Yeah.
I'm feeling stressed and he's down, right? So I have to have other coping skills available to me. And so some of those include the body scan is one of
Hmm.
my all-time favorites. How to do a body scan, if you don't know, is in my book. Look it up. It's honestly fantastic. After I experienced my ectopic pregnancy and had to have surgery, I did body scans constantly just to really have that connection with myself. And I now
So
do
good.
them regularly.
Yeah.
It's been,
Yeah.
I mean, well over a year. Um, and I just love it. And I really, really hope people understand that like you need to have, a good 3, 4, 5 coping skills that you can
Yeah.
pull from and be like, okay, this is the one I'm doing today. And if that one doesn't work, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes I go for a
Yeah.
walk and I'm like, fuck, I'm still not feeling good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I can go home and do something else and try
Something
something
else.
else,
Yeah. Okay, you guys, it's that time where there's a couple of announcements. So, the first one I want to say is that on June 20th, we are doing a free masterclass. It's called From Burnout to Bliss, and it is all about learning some of those tools, those different healing modalities that are going to get you to where you want to go, right? Be the person who is less stressed, be the person who is enjoying life, and be the person that you really want to be. So, we're so excited. The first thing to do if you want to get in is text the word bliss to 707-347-0723. Again, 347-0723. I am so excited for you, and be on the lookout. If you go to helloaudreyrose.com/events, you're going to be the first to know about all of the new courses coming up, the coaching we have coming out, and the best part, my favorite, the retreats. Woohoo! I'm so excited, you guys. Check it out. And as always, everything's going to be posted on my Instagram, which is at Hello Audrey Rose. I want to highlight that for all the listeners. Like, the kind of one of the points is to get good at your coping skills so that you can like learn your triggers quicker, or learn your like recognize what's going on a little bit faster before you get so far past the trigger point that you are like spiraling. Also, it's really important just to have them handy. Like, literally, I used to have like a post-it up where I could see it
Yes.
super easily, because I couldn't like cope or learn anything. I didn't know myself well enough. So I was in the spiral period before I thought about like, whoa, what do I do right now? And then
Totally.
literally having like the book right there, or like a post-it, or just something you can see. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
well, there it is. Like, I'm just going to do that right now. Or just
Yeah.
know, practicing them when you're feeling good before you're spiraling. So you just know what that go-to is, right? It's just like, hey, I know the first thing I do is I go for a walk, or I do a body scan. Like, it's just, that's just it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
having it
Mhm.
ingrained, like start making that mental pathway, start getting it, ingrained in
Yeah.
your body, like muscle memory, that like that's just what you do.
What you do. Yeah, I love it. And that's one of the things I noticed about myself is if I'm feeling overwhelmed, first of all, the book is titled I Got 99 Coping Skills and Being a Bitch Ain't One, because what I
Yeah.
find is when I am overwhelmed, I automatically turn into a bitch. I act rude, I
Dang,
act
so
distant, I
good.
act offensive, right? And I like all these characters, I turn into a huge bitch.
Yeah.
And I never really like put it together, like, which is so weird, but I really didn't for a long, long time. And then finally, when I did, I was like, now there's no excuse. Like, I can't keep
Yeah.
acting that way towards, like, the people that I'm closest with, like
Yeah.
my husband, my
Yeah.
mom, like all these different people that I was like, okay, you guys are like getting the short end of the stick here, and it's real
Yeah.
shitty for you. And
Yeah.
so that's just not cool. So I'm like, okay, now I don't have an excuse anymore. Like, I have to use these coping skills, like a hello. But also what I've noticed is when I'm in the thick of it, so much of my anxiety comes from when something feels out of control. We
Mm.
were recently going through an experience, and I had no control over medical appointments and figuring out what was going on and all that, whatever. I'm not going to get into the whole
Yeah.
situation, but
Yeah.
basically, so much of it I could not control. And I
Yeah.
realized I have all these different tabs open in my head, and I need to start
Yes.
closing them down. And I have control of certain tabs, and others I don't. One
Yeah.
was I looked around my house and I was like, wow, my kitchen is a
Yeah.
freaking disaster. My bedroom is a freaking disaster. I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a mom of two. I have a messy house, and
Right.
it's
Right.
fine, except for when that is one thing that I can take control of in
Control.
this moment
Yeah.
right now. Start small, smart, start in, the closet, in the bathroom, like the small room,
Yeah.
and just get that tidied up. And that made me instantly like, boom, that tab was closed and I have more mental space. Like,
Yeah.
right.
Oh,
And
I love
so
that analogy of
really
the
doing that.
space and the tabs.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And it just, if I mean, it truly feels that way. It's
Yeah.
like, gosh, every time I can exit a tab on my computer, I actually physically feel better.
I feel
And
it.
that's
Yep.
so true for your brain too.
Yeah. Yep.
Hmm.
You have to add that space because like that's like with me, like I used to be such a huge fan of meditation and then all of a sudden like life just got kind of busy and I'm not waking up early and then if I don't do it like at that time, like when I wake up, then it's like not going to happen. So
Totally.
it's just like clearing that space and now as I'm trying to get back into that routine, it's like it's so amazing how good you feel when you are clearing your mental space and when you're doing things to check in with yourself and
Hmm.
your body and see like where you're at. Like you just said, like, wait, hold on. I'm checking in. I'm kind of being a bitch right now. Something's kind of happening. Okay, like what do I need to do? Like what tabs do I need to close? Like what do I need to get done? And I feel like so much resistance when you said that because that's totally me. That's totally what I do. And I'm just like, it's not fair to the people around us. So the best thing we can do is start to focus on healing that for ourselves.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it just takes a little time. It takes a little practice, right? And you're not gonna do it all the time. I mean, still, I'm like,
Mm,
oh, I'm being a huge bitch today.
yeah.
And then I'm like, oh
Yeah.
shit. Right. So like, and sometimes you truly cannot access like the root of it. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm being a bitch because whatever.
Yeah.
Other times I'm like, there's no reason. I cannot
Yeah.
figure it out, which is almost like more maddening. I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But either way, I don't always need to figure out the root of it. Not in that moment. I need to get
Yeah.
myself out of the moment. And how do I do that? I
Yeah.
take control of my life. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's such a good point.
Hmm.
I just want everybody to know where they can find you. I know we talked about your website, your blog, but is like a social media platform, one of the other places they can find you?
Oh yes. Oh yes, of course. Yes, I hang out on Instagram. That's really like the only place
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
So I'm coping with Lindsey on there also. And then yeah, my website is also, like I said, copingwithlindsey.com. It's pretty consistent across the
Yeah.
board.
I'll
You can
make sure
find me.
it's in the show notes so everybody can literally
Yeah.
scroll up right now, click it while you're still listening. Just click onto that and
Yeah.
go check that out. Learn how to do a body scan, do the guided meditations, do all the things.
Yes.
And then can you just leave everybody? I know you've obviously given us access to a book with the 99 coping skills, but could you leave everybody with like your number one self-care, self-love tip?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
I know.
I know that's hard. 'Cause I'm like, "Ooh." I think my biggest one is I like to say, show yourself compassion, not self-esteem. I think your self-esteem is so much rides on, other people around you and how that factors in, and your self-compassion, self-worth is internal. And so really turning inward, I mean that's kind of the theme, I
Yeah.
guess, that we're running into,
Yeah.
right? Is really just doing the things that you love for yourself and not thinking about, okay, what is she going to think of that? What is he going to think
Yeah.
of that? It doesn't matter what they think about it. You do what's right for you. and show yourself compassion and grace through your journey.
Yeah. So good. So good. And it's like easy to say, but like everybody listening, we have to do that. We all have to seriously stop and like take a minute to truly do that.
Yes.
It's important. Well, thank you. It was so nice to chat with you, and I'm so happy you got to make it to another amazing episode of the Ready to Rise podcast. Don't hesitate to share this with a friend that needs to hear it. Send it straight to their DMs. Take a screenshot, throw it up in your stories, tag me in it at Hello Audrey Rose. And don't forget, if you leave a written review on the iTunes app, that also helps people find it. So if it resonates with you, help others find it. And I can't wait to hear how much you loved this awesome episode. Have a blessed day.